up, everybody? Steve Schwartz here from LSAT Unplugged with some big news for you about the American Bar Association and the LSAT requirement for law school admissions. Before I get into it, please do me a favor, like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. It really helps with that YouTube algorithm, and I really do appreciate it. So anyway, on to the news. First off, some background though. You may not have known this, but most law schools require the LSAT for admissions in part due to an ABA requirement, specifically Standard 503, which requires that law schools use a valid and reliable admission test. In recent years, there's been a big test optional movement in higher education to eliminate or remove standardized testing requirements for admission to college and graduate school. The American Bar Association has been no exception to this. They've considered ending the so-called LSAT requirement a number of times over the years, but this time it looks like it will actually go through. The ABA's Strategic Review Committee published the proposed changes to Standard 503 earlier this year, and over the summer, they solicited dozens of comments from students and admissions officers sharing their opinions on whether the ABA should eliminate the LSAT requirement or not. They've since reviewed the public comments on the proposal and now decided to go ahead with their recommendations to allow law schools to go test optional. The next major step will be for them to vote on the proposal to revise Standard 503, and I do expect it to pass. That's a lot. I'm going to share a couple of the biggest questions I've got from you via YouTube comments, as well as comments on Instagram and TikTok. First question, any idea when this will be implemented? Wondering if I should wait to apply. For reasons I'll share in a minute, most law schools would probably still require the LSAT, even if the American Bar Association did not require them to do so. So I wouldn't look at this as a reason to delay applying to law school for a couple of years or something like that. I'd also recommend that you take the LSAT before they remove the current logic game section. For more on that news item, check out my recent video titled, When Will LSAT Remove the Logic Games? November 2022 LSAT update. Next question, does this change benefit or hurt applicants? First off, as I said, most law schools will likely still require a test like the LSAT anyway, so it probably won't impact most applicants, and I'll talk more about why in a moment. The impact of removing a test requirement like the LSAT is somewhat mixed. At first glance, it might seem like it levels the playing field, but whether it actually does, or to what extent, isn't entirely clear. On the one hand, removing that barrier allows those who wouldn't do well in the LSAT a better shot at getting into law school. A 2-hour multiple choice exam is obviously very different from what you'll do in the legal profession. On the other hand, people with resources will likely spend that test prep money on developing their resumes and polishing their applications. A lot of money gets spent in the admission consulting world for undergraduate admissions, and the amount devoted to law school admissions consulting would likely grow substantially. Additionally, GPA would carry a lot more weight than it currently does because schools wouldn't have any test score to look at. This means the change would hurt those with low GPAs who are looking for the LSAT to increase the strength of their application, and it would help those who already have high GPAs. Those who took easy majors with lots of grade inflation would have a significant advantage over those who struggled in college. And that latter group might include those who worked through college, those who have family obligations, and those who had personal emergencies that took their focus away from school, leading them to get lower grades than they otherwise might have gotten. The other thing is that removing any requirements makes it easier to apply. A lot of people view the LSAT as an insurmountable barrier, which I understand, of course, but it doesn't have to be. And you can conquer it in the end. In fact, I've spent my entire career helping students do exactly that. So it's pretty safe to say that if a school doesn't require the LSAT, they'll likely get more applicants than if they do require the LSAT, but they only have the same number of seats, making things more competitive. Now, a lot of people don't really understand why law schools would require the LSAT, even if they don't have to. And this is a key point that a lot of folks miss when they're just reading the headlines. The ABA rule change wouldn't ban schools from using the LSAT or another test. It just wouldn't require them to. This is actually a key distinction and the sort of thing the LSAT frequently tests. But anyway, like I said, it'd be up to individual schools to decide whether to require the LSAT or another exam or not. And I do think that many schools still would. One reason is that US News counts LSAT scores as a factor, and schools care a lot about their US News rankings due to the prestige associated with having a relatively higher rank. Schools can raise their status by accepting students with higher LSAT scores. So that's one reason they do it. Another is that the LSAT actually serves a useful function for them. Like I said earlier regarding GPA, a 3.8 GPA in a less rigorous major that provides a lot of grade inflation opportunities is easier to achieve and therefore not as impressive as a 3.8 GPA in a more rigorous major where it's harder to get top grades. The LSAT allows schools to easily compare applicants regardless of grade inflation or where they went to undergrad or the major they chose to study. Also, if we look at equivalent accrediting bodies for medical school and business school, they don't require schools to use tests for admission, but many still do require tests anyway, like the MCAT, the GMAT, or the GRE, depending on where you're applying, of course. So it's unclear whether many schools would stop requiring the LSAT, even if they could. My guess is that any schools that did stop requiring the LSAT would probably be the lower ranked schools who typically have a harder time getting applicants. Most schools will probably take a wait and see approach because they're risk averse, especially when it comes to jeopardizing their US News rankings, and they'll look to see what happens for the adventurous schools that choose to remove LSAT requirements first. Bottom line, none of this is directly relevant to anyone applying to law school right now. So if you're applying to law school this cycle, keep studying. Anyway, folks, that's all for now. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please like the video, leave a comment sharing your thoughts about the change, and do me a favor and subscribe to the channel. It really does help with that YouTube algorithm, and I really do appreciate it. Thanks for watching. All the best, and take care. Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them, and feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.